Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Charles Aniegoluso, an eminent research scientist who has worked in some of the world's most distinguished laboratories, such as those at Cambridge University in the UK and Imperial College also in the UK, decides to venture into the world of Nigerian politics. Dr. Eddie Mbadiwe went into the House of Representatives in 2011, expecting to meet the likes of what his father met when they were in politics. Polished, selfless gentlemen. What he encounters was a different class of people that he describes in his book, A Scientist in Parliament, as money bags, loudmouths and rascals, people who, according to him, seem to focus more on stealing from the public purse and sabotaging government institutions that they are paid to defend. Well, in a moment, we'll speak to Dr. Eddie Mbadiwe himself. But first, here he is, as a member of the House of Representatives, debating with his colleagues in Parliament.
Either sell these babies to people, couples who are desperate for children, or sell them to racketeers who train them and then sell them abroad as sex slaves.
Well, that's a very short snippet there, but it's best to hear from the man himself, isn't it? Let's speak now to the scientist, author, and former member of the House of Representatives, Dr. Eddie Mbadiwe. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. And what was the setting of that chat we just saw you? Very brief, but that's honestly, what we could get our hands on.
I'm just trying to recollect what it was.
Right.
But I believe we were talking about...
you talked about the selling of babies.
Yes, you know.
Right. So it must be human trafficking.
Yeah, there was a time this was the easiest way to make money. You know, people got young girls, got them pregnant, then got the babies, gave them maybe 100,000 naira, and then sold the babies to people who are looking for children.
Extraordinary.
That was terrible.
And let's be clear, though, that you are no longer a member of the House of Representatives.
No, I'm not.
And you left the House of Representatives in 2015.
That is correct, yes.
Did you leave the House of Representatives, or did you run from the House of Representatives?
It's a mixture of both. To be honest with you, when I came back from England and said I wanted to get into politics, I had come back to go to the Senate. That was what I had at the back of my mind. But the political system here is so complex that I was almost completely outmaneuvered. So the House of Reps was, for me, a kind of fallback position, which the chairman of ABGA, Victor May, advised me to take rather than lose everything.
Was that the party you ran under?
Yes, ABGA. Yeah,
right.
That was correct.
And I mean, you must have been shocked, having lived abroad and being used to the way that politics is done, but also used to the way that your father and your uncle, K.O. Mbadiwe, we'll talk about them later on, but I mean, it must have been quite a shock to you to come into this jungle that's called Nigerian politics.
If we want to be honest with ourselves, the system as of now cannot grow. In fact, it's getting worse. For me, there are no elections. Period. There are no elections. The talks take over, write the results, intimidate people, and get INEC to announce what they didn't announce.
Well, that presumes that for you to have won an election, you would have participated to a greater or lesser extent in that mess.
To some degree, yes. To some degree, definitely. Because
so you hired your own thugs?
No, I didn't. But
or somebody hired them on your behalf?
No, the party had. The party had thugs.
Right.
You know. But you see, as you got into it, you started wondering, is this really what I came for? There was a conflict, you know. And towards the end of the 4 years, I was completely fed up. I just wanted to get out.
So did you decide you were not going to run again? Or did you try and fail to secure victory?
It's a complex thing because there's a lot of treachery.
Right.
There's no honor in Nigerian politics. Let me give you an example, for instance. Midway, ABGA, and other parties helped to form the ABC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And towards the election, the chairman then, John Oyego, told the leader of the party in Imo State, who was Rochas Okroche, that they wanted people like me to go back unopposed. And I had that confidence, but it didn't happen. I was with Rochas a day before.
You were outmaneuvered,
I was
basically.
completely. I was betrayed, in fact, not outmaneuvered, I was
Right.
betrayed because I was with the governor a day before the primary, a day in his house in Owerri. And the next day, he sent people with money and loudspeakers, and they were announcing that they should make sure that Mbadiwe did not come back. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
I can well
Somebody
imagine.
was with him the night before.
My goodness, it's not funny, actually.
No, it's not.
But in a strange way, it is funny.
But it's real.
Right.
This is the reality of Nigerian politics.
That is
So-
extraordinary.
Yes. And so I believe that I just couldn't fit into that system. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to write this book. Not to castigate anybody, but to see if we can begin to improve the system. Otherwise, the system will die.
Well, to be honest, I mean, it seems, certainly from my perspective,
Yes.
an almost impossible task these days for anyone with any sort of pedigree
Yeah.
to become a politician because of the numerous compromises, some of which you've mentioned, that you have to make. And you have obvious pedigree. I mean, coming from the Mbadiwe family, your father was a respected politician, your uncle K.O. was also a politician and a federal minister. How challenging was that for you, breaking into the Nigerian? Because you must have had some real sort of ambitions and dreams and saying, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be altruistic. I'm going to try and change things for the better.
That was a dream when I was coming back from England. In fact, when I told them in England I was going to contest for election, they said, are you crazy? Are you mad? You can't leave the comfort of what you're doing in the UK. I said, well, somebody has got to change the system. If all of us keep away, then the system will not grow. And I just packed my things and came back. But when you got into it, you found it wasn't what you planned for. There were two alternatives. Either you continued or you decided to go back. And I don't like quitting. I'm not a quitter at all. So I said, let's give it a try. And we did.
Well, you seem like such a, I mean, maybe it's just my perception, but such a mild-mannered person that you just seem to be a fish out of water in Nigerian politics. You don't have that sort of bullish, aggressive thing that is needed to kind of get in there and get in the trenches.
That's the
and
point. I don't
fight.
think it's needed. That's the point I'm making. You see, I believe that if people get educated up to a certain level, one of the bills I brought in Parliament was to make education compulsory and mandatory up to SS3 for everybody. It may take another 20 years or whatever, but until we get to that stage, this nonsense will just continue. It will be money, go and vote and come and take 5,000 or 3,000. It's unfortunate.
How do you think it got to be that way?
Well, one of the factors, of course, is poverty. The society is very poor. People cannot afford more than 1 million a day in most places, up till now. So if you give them 1,000 naira, it's a lot of money. But you see, if you educate it up to a certain level, as obtains in the Western world, if people come to you, they want to know what you are going to do for the country, not how much money you brought. But for us, it's getting more difficult to get to that stage. It is getting more difficult.
And were you struck by what some have called the low pedigree of the Nigerian politician in terms of their education, their grasp of the issues, and the moral or immoral compass that guides their work?
Well, the thing is, are we going to then leave it to get worse? Or are we going to try to change it?
Well, what I'm asking first
Yes.
is how struck were you by those things when you
Well,
got into, first of all, got into politics and then got into the House of Representatives?
No, that is the reality of Nigerian politics. But you see, as a student, undergraduate, I had been a student leader. I had been vice president of NONS, National Nigerian Students. So I've always been idealistic about what we can do for this country, not in terms of where you come from or whether you're Igbo or Hausa or whatever. In fact, at some stage, some of us didn't even know or didn't want to be identified either as Igbo or Hausa or Yoruba. We saw ourselves as Nigerians. In Ibadan, in those days, that was Ibadan, many years ago. But now, it's a different ballgame altogether. But how can we get it back to get people to still believe that you can do noble things in politics? It's difficult.
It must be very, very frustrating for somebody like yourself.
It's very frustrating.
Who clearly, at your stage of experience, had seen Nigeria when it was in good nick, as we say. I mean, you lived through the good times, and you've just watched the country go from bad to worse, which, as you said, is one of the reasons you got into politics in the first place.
Yeah. That's, what you just said is very correct. So that conflict still continues to persist. What can we do to rectify it?
And given that you tried, and perhaps I should use the term failed, to make a change, how do you feel now?
I have not given up. In other words, I'm still in politics, even though I in the current situation, I don't think I want to contest any election, because there's no election. It's a matter of who pays INEC. We have to be very clear about that. Who pays INEC more money and gets them to write, because what they do now, they write the elections. It's not a matter of voting. I mean, 2 days ago we had elections in Bayelsa and
I was going to come to that, and I'll ask you to hold that thought, because I want to talk about that. I also want to talk more about your book. In fact, there are 2 books that you've written that just came out. We'll talk about that in a moment. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with Dr. Eddie Mbadiwe, the Nigerian academic who for a time brought his scientific training and experience to legislative business at the National Assembly. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Charles Anyegolo. Now, my guest today is Dr. Eddie Mbadiwe, a Nigerian academic who, as we've mentioned, brought his scientific training and experience to legislative business, capturing it all in a new book titled A Scientist in Parliament. The book is about life in the Nigerian House of Representatives, written by a man who, though he spent time as a member of that house, has been less than charitable in his forensic examination and condemnation of many aspects of the Green Chamber, as well as politics and governance in Nigeria. Well, let's continue our chat with the Right Honourable Dr. Eddie Mbadiwe about his new book and about his insights into the Nigerian National Assembly in particular, and politics and governance in general in Nigeria. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your book. Why did you choose the title A Scientist in Parliament?
Well, as a scientist, there are things you cannot do. You cannot, for instance, forge results in experiments. So you have to be very true to yourself. And I was lucky, I was trained as the only student by a Nobel Prize winner in the subject. I was his only student.
A Nobel Prize winner?
Yes.
Who's this Nobel Prize winner?
His name was Dick Singh. He, when he was working in Cambridge, developed liquid partition chromatography, which is very, very effective in separations in science.
Right.
So if you work with such a man as the only student, then there are standards that you must keep.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the point. So when you come into politics or anything, in fact, you are bound to say it as it is. You're not trying to run anybody down, but you're also not trying to cover deficiencies. So that is why I choose that.
And what's the thrust of the book? What's its main
The
central
thrust of the
focus?
book is to try to change the system. I believe that the system, as of now, is completely flawed, ineffective, and therefore cannot push this country forward.
Was it written anecdotally, your personal experiences?
A lot of it is my personal experience.
Right.
Yes, a lot of it.
And what are the things that stood out for you?
Well, for instance, there is this clamor in Nigeria that legislators are paid what they call jumbo salaries.
Is that a wrong perception?
The salary is not jumbo, I can tell you that.
What would jumbo compared to what?
Compared to what people earn
Yeah.
in the corporate world. For instance, let me tell you, the salary of a legislator, at least when I was there, is less than 1 million naira a month after taxes.
Right, but that's the salary.
Yes.
What about the benefits
Well,
that
this is
go
the
with
point.
it?
This is where we have to go into now. The benefits are supposed to be decided by the Revenue and Mobilization Commission. Whether they did, in fact, I say so in the book, if they did not fix the benefits, then they have defaulted in their duties. And you cannot blame the legislators.
Look, the point really from the ordinary person's point
Yes.
of view is all the stuff about your salary, your benefits, I mean, all they're interested in is what do you take home at the end of the month?
Very good.
Or at the end of the year? What does it come to
let me tell you.
in terms of, in totality?
Yes, I've been at a meeting.
Yeah.
Somebody said members of the House take home 12 million naira a month. 12 million naira. That is a lie. It's not true. As I said, the salary is less than 1 million. Then the allowances come to about 3-4 million. So maybe in a month you take home about between 1 and 4 to 5 million.
You're looking at, so basically you're taking
Everything.
about 5 million
Yeah.
a month.
Yeah.
That's still a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. But remember, you also have a lot of responsibilities. You have staff in the constituencies who you are bound to pay if you are honest to yourself. You have staff with you in National Assembly who report directly to you and whose salaries are under your schedule.
Right.
But then, having said that as well, some people do not engage these numbers.
Well, in fact, some people don't have any constituency offices at all.
Exactly. So,
I mean-
so these are things that can be corrected. The inputs of the legislators, that is the amount of work we put in, for me, is not commensurate with the salaries we get. I believe that what we are paid is much, much above what we put in. Therefore, there has to be a mechanism.
You mean what
to-
the dedicated ones put
Yes,
in?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, or supposed to put in, you know, because there are people who don't even come at all,
Right.
and there are no sanctions. You know, so these are issues that must be addressed. Not only in legislature.
And you addressed those in your book?
Yes, I did.
Right.
I
okay.
did. You know,
Now, you've been very critical in several of your writings beyond the book of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. I expect your criticism has become more strident following the just concluded governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states.
that is correct. You know, the other book which I have, which is Stunted Nigerian Dreams, it's a collection of.
We've got it up on the screen.
Oh, you have. Okay.
Stunted Nigerian Dreams with you.
It's a thank you. It's a collection of articles I've written over the years, and you'll be surprised that some of these articles resonate. I was lucky. I met the Right Honourable Dr. Mbadiwe a few years before he died.
Who?
Dr. Mbadiwe.
Okay, right. Yes,
Attorney-
yes. I was going to talk about
Yes.
that. You
Attorney-
actually learned a lot from him.
I learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I also learned a lot from my uncle, Dr. Mbadiwe.
Yes.
So this question of just staying near them is what we should encourage among our children. Just by staying near you, for instance.
Yeah, but the problem is that there are not that many. I mean, if you go to the National Assembly, that's one of the things your book talks about. You don't have that kind of pedigree anymore.
That is true.
If a
That is
kid
true.
wants to be a politician, I mean, who are they going to
Look up
learn
to.
from?
Yeah.
Somebody who is got armed thugs all over the place and who is, I mean, inflating figures and in corrupt and all that sort of thing, how is the person going to learn?
No, it's a big problem for the nation, not just for a few people. Because what is the future of the nation if we don't harness these people, harness knowledge from them? As you said, just by spending 1 hour with Zik at Onui, we got so much.
And you had all that, the benefit of spending time with the first Nigerian president. I mean, you spent time with your uncle, K.O. Mbadiwe. You went to University of East Anglia, got your PhD there. You went to Imperial College in London. You went to Cambridge University in the UK. I mean, did your colleagues at the National Assembly feel intimidated by your...
No, they don't.
By your
No, there
qualifications?
there are other people who are also eminently qualified. There are people who, for instance, went to Harvard and so on in the National Assembly. But it's a matter of that, like drops in the ocean, as it were. That is the problem,
And the ocean is made up of the detritus, as it were.
So it's a problem for our country, and it gives people like me a lot of concern.
And I mean, when you look at the National Assembly, and it's not just the National Assembly, politics in general, you see a lot of flamboyance with very little substance. But some would argue that your uncle K.O. Mbadiwe was also very flamboyant.
He was.
But with substance. Is that the difference?
That is the difference. K.O. was a very committed Nigerian. And anything he set his mind to do, he did it very well. He put everything into it. And that kind of dedication is very rare these days, unfortunately.
You had a lot of flamboyant politicians in those days. I mean, we see pictures of Festus Okotie-Able, for example, the long train behind him, and like dancers and all that following him, and women all around him. I mean, but I suppose when you look at those people, they still delivered to some extent what was expected of them.
Before Dr. Okpara died, I was at a wedding in Enugu with him at the Presidential Hotel. And Dr. Okpara had only one house in his lifetime.
That was the former Premier of Eastern Nigeria.
Only one house on Ogui Road. And that house was not completed. I know the house. So he was telling me that presidential was built when he was Premier. The whole thing, the land, furniture, everything, cost £500,000 then.
Right.
And he built a replica in Port Harcourt.
So a big difference.
Very big difference.
We don't find them anymore,
No.
and we must hope that we will find them.
We have to.
I want to thank you,
to.
Dr. Eddie Mbadiwe, very much indeed for coming in, author of the new book, A Scientist in Parliament, and of course, Stunted, what was it, Stunted Development? Stunted
Nigerian Dreams.
Stunted
Nigerian Dreams.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
Well, that's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Join us again for a fresh edition tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.